Okay, here I have a Technics, bit of a classic, the old Technics SU-7200. They did sell quite a few of these things. Rather filthy front on this. It's only $20, so I couldn't resist grabbing it. It is a little rusty, the speaker terminals, an antenna, bit of damage on the end there, and quite rusty underneath. Which isn't surprising with some of these. They've been sitting around in garages and sheds and God knows what, either unused or possibly used in a shed or something. I think these were 1970s, they have to be 1970s looking at it. I think they're actually good for 20 watts a channel, which is a bit better than a lot of the amps of that era. So these were more, in those days, I guess, a kind of more high-end, higher power one, because a lot of them were down to 5 to 10 watts at various hi-fi units in those days, and often shelf units and 3-in-1s and stuff, but even the better amps were not overly powerful. You could, unless you want to spend a lot of money, you get some of the really high-end stuff, but this is sort of what your average hi-fi person would be aiming at, something like this. A good sort of middle of the road, yeah, TO220 outputs. Some little bits of plasticky stuff there, I don't know what that is. Some sort of muck in here, so it's a little rusty, quite dirty. Wouldn't be hard to actually just unscrew the front panel, back panel and this circuit board and respray, well, clean off the rust first obviously, and respray that. So it could even be a good little resto job. It's got the old potentiometers, a little triangle Matsushita symbol there, or Matsushita, however you meant to say it. Much like in their televisions, you can instantly recognise those potentiometers and the blue capacitors, which I assume were made by them as well. Yeah, they got those triangular with the little pointy bits in the corners, almost like a Mitsubishi symbol, I think, isn't it? What did Mitsubishi have? They had something like that. I think they did have 3 triangles like that, didn't they? Maybe they are Mitsubishis. But I'm pretty sure Matsushita used that 3300 mic at 35 volt main filter caps. A couple of these little half bridge rectifier things. I forgot about those. They're a funny little 3-legged. God, yeah, it brings back a few memories of pulling old electronic stuff apart and getting weird parts like that out of it. One's brown, one's black, so I assume, yeah, one's got the negative in the middle, one the positive, so they're just like a twin diode pack. A little jumper there that someone's cut, which may be a factory thing. There's another one there, so maybe that's for setting the bias or something. Does it have a trim port in here? I can't see one. Oh, look, someone's fixed this because it's got the TO3 plastic outputs in that channel, so that's been blown up at some point. And we've got these larger TO92 type transistors and smaller ones. Normally these were very reliable, in my experience anyway, whether they're still reliable, but these Technics amps usually had really good semiconductors. All the national televisions and stuff had really good semiconductors. A couple of little ICs, might be the phono preamp or something, or maybe it's a preamp generally. And yeah, the old yellowy capacitors, again, looks very much like a TV chassis from the same sort of era. And is that a light or it's got an actual LED on the front panel, so it's not an incandescent light. Quite nice looking knobs. If they were cleaned up, they'd come up quite nice. Oh yeah, we've got a indented volume control. I guess it's not really just an indent, but it's the clicky one. Yeah, very nice feeling switch there. Not seized up or anything like you might expect. Almost too loose. Off main remote. A lot of these were went real hard and stuff. So it's a nice feeling amp. Everything seems to still click on it and stuff, so I guess time to plug it in and see if we get any DC out of the outputs, whether someone's blown one of these channels again. I guess I'll better check the fuses. Not even much point powering it up if the fuses are blown, but they look alright from what I can see. That'd be the mains one. Ooh, we've got a blown one there. So I'd say that's going to be, well, it's got left and right next to it, so that's your channel outputs. and that would be into the transformer, most likely primary. Yeah, that's the power switch goes off there, so I assume that fuse is in line there somewhere. So I'd say we've got a dead channel again, and there's no way of getting under the board anyway. So we've got a power light. No, yeah, there it is, little light on the front. I thought for a minute the headphone socket was meant to light up, but that's the headphone socket. Pretty dim LED, as you'd expect from the 70s. And we want those fuse holders, I guess. Now, what's a good ground in this thing? We could use that, or we could use a DIN socket, or RCA socket. Outer is probably the safest thing. I'm guessing one of these is going to have something on it. Nothing. Oh, maybe they've just blown a channel. As in blown the fuse of minus 0.3 volts there. So a little tiny bit. It's only just popped that fuse. So it wasn't a catastrophic failure, which again suggests there wasn't a particularly large amount of DC. I don't know what that test point is for. One on each channel. Can I get to? I can get to the collectors easy enough on these transistors, because that's probably going to be on the output, or not. That's got 25 volts on it, so must be the emitters are connected up to that. Is that the emitter? Yeah, that's what it says. At least they've marked it on the board. So we've got our rails coming in all right. And you definitely don't want to short this onto that heatsink as you measure it. Easy enough to do. Interesting. I think that is probably safe to plug into a set of speakers. Could just be someone cranked her up loud or had a bad speaker on there or something. What do they put in there? 3.15 amp, that'll be a quick blow. Well, I might even put a, let's just put a 1 amp or something in there. I think that's about what my speakers are fused with. Is that a, it's a grotty old 1 amp, but that's good. If that blows, I don't care. Just a fuse recycled out or something. Because if you're going to blow fuses, you might as well blow one you didn't pay for rather than one you did. Just double check, see what the voltages are. Interesting, there's no voltage there now, so maybe me connecting it back to something's discharged the cap or something. I'll turn that off and I'll hook some speakers up. Speakers left. Oh, this is one of these ones with the speakers above and below. That's your mains, and the ones below are the other channel, not 4 across in a row. Ah, interesting, there's a fuse stuck to the back of it here, I didn't even notice that. That's a 3 amp too, I think, so they even gave me a spare fuse to fix it with. Well, I can hear the speakers thump, and a bit of scratchy controls are useful for that. You can at least test if the thing's working. So that's running. We're on main speakers, obviously, because they're working. That seems to work. I must remember that I put a lower value fuse in there. Okay, the battery ran out, but while I was recharging that, I thought I'd give this thing a bit of a clean, so I've cleaned up the front panel. A lot better now. I did find it's got a ding on that knob and a bit of a ding on the end, so it wasn't all good, and there's a couple of marks on there. And I haven't fully cleaned up the knobs, but she's come up a lot better than it was. And got all the dust out of it, and I found all you gotta do is undo 2 screws on the ends of the panel here, 2 on the heatsink where these little holes are. down the board, and this thing just opens up nicely. So I'll flip it around the other way. And the first thing I noticed is we've got massive dry joints on the base control. Wonder one of the channels didn't drop out. There's a few dry joints on this one, which is a treble, I guess, if it's next to the base. And almost looks like someone's resoldered the balance already. But it goes to show it's always worth checking these things to see if they've got dry joints or anything, especially when they're from the 70s or something. They've been around quite a long time, and these sort of things get wobbled around by people. Front panel gets flexed around, you can see the sort of board moves. And yeah, especially when it's had a few bumps and stuff. And the other thing I might do is actually replace, see what those original transistors are. It looks like both channels have been soldered, so maybe both have been blown at some stage. But I'll find out if they are the original transistors, find out what we got in there. I think they want all putting back to TO220 type ones. Hopefully I've got something here that'll do the job. If not, I can always buy a couple. And I guess I better check the other pair if it looks like someone's fiddled with it, to make sure that they're the originals as well, because it'd be nice to put this back to its original form. And since I've got it this far apart, I'm thinking I might, all I've got to do I think is unscrew the transformer in the back panel, and then this bottom will be easy to clean up and respray. And the transformer itself, if you take these 4 bolts out, you should be able to get these end caps off, and then maybe wrap something around the wires and spray them, clean all the rust off those and give them a coat. And then the top and possibly the sides, I think it's just the top of the transformer, could probably do with a quick coat of black paint. Might have to do all of it so it all matches. But it probably wouldn't hurt to give this thing a bit of a restoration. But it all seemed to be working fine at least. We'll check over, there's a bit of a crack starting there. Actually I've got some old solder out of another LCD panel kit thing I did, so I might as well use that up and get rid of it, because I hate having all these little bits of solder lying around. And it's not the sort of thing you should put in a rubbish since it's got lead in it. So the best place to put it is to work somewhere. Yeah, only one half of that pot's dry, interesting, but I'm going to resolder everything just to be sure. And same with the other one, I think we'll do everything. That's always the sort of thing, anything that is mechanically attached to something and soldered to the circuit board, definitely what you've got to check for dry joints, because you get the movement between the two things. Sometimes it's just heat, even expansion and stuff over a long time will cause problems. That's not even a connection to anything. Explains why it doesn't look the best. And of course we don't want any dry joints in the amp stages themselves. That's the sort of thing that can cause, especially around the outputs, cause issues that might cause the outputs to blow or something. Though you'd hope someone would turn the thing off before then, but you never know. Not so much in amps and TVs. If you get dry joints in the horizontal, you're definitely risking blowing that horizontal output transistor if it's connecting and disconnecting. Even on the horizontal drive transformer and stuff, having that thing suddenly come on and go off and stuff seems to upset it. That's the end of that bit of solder. And these switches want to be checked. Oh, so that one's been resoldered, so that's good. That's a function switch, the volume control's off the board. Things like these little driver ICs, they look pretty good, but often you'll find the end pins are the first to go. So I might just resolder a couple of pins there. The other one looks good. Yeah, these switches, it's nice to redo them. You don't have to, if they don't look too bad. But again, since they're mechanically, although these are probably, I think screwed to the front panel or just to the soldered to the board, but still doesn't hurt to go over them. Any joint that doesn't look 100%. Even the output transistors themselves, which of course have been resoldered in this because someone's repaired it by the look of it, possibly changed this driver here. There's a bit of flux there, that driver there maybe. So this amp might have had a bit of a hard life and dodgy speakers connected to it or cranked up too loud. That joint, whatever that is not looking the best. Partially cracked. I think they're alright, but doesn't hurt to Any larger parts are on the board, like these big caps, they're actually soldered beautifully. But they're the sort of thing, if it's getting vibrations and stuff, big parts will move around more. They got more mass basically, and so they'll tend to crack the solder joints if you're not careful. And in televisions, there always seem to be stuff in the high frequency, like the horizontal driver transformer and stuff. I'm sure stuff running at high frequency, maybe it was more to do with heat or something, don't know, but they seem to be common for dry joints for some reason, even in TVs that weren't moved around. Like you can understand it in portables. So that's all looking pretty good. I guess we'll have a look and see what we've actually got here. Even those clamp sort of things could probably do with a clean-up. They're a bit rusty. Not the end of the world, but not ideal either. Oh yeah, those switches are screwed via brackets. They're all joined together on one bracket and then screwed to the front panel, so the headphone socket's another thing. I guess I should really check the board on that volume control as well. So the TO220s are, yeah, these have been changed. They're tip somethings. European transistor, be a tip 31, tip 32 or something, I'm guessing. Oh no, it's tip 42, I think. No, I think they were a higher power. I seem to remember having to get some tip 42s for some guitar amp or something I fixed, so... yeah, tip... is it a 41? Tip 41C, I think, and 42C. The letter does mean something, and the others are an A, 1103, and it'll be a D, I guess, something, and a C, 25, is that a 77? 25, 78, probably a slight variant of the 77. I forget what SK, what company it was, Sanken or something. So they're much newer than the 70s, so I don't think they ever had TO3 plastic cases in the 70s, which I think they had TO3Ps. And yeah, tip 41s, you might find them in some British made amplifier or something, but you're not going to find them in a Technics. I'm pretty certain, well, I can see they've been soldered, so I think we'd say pretty much 100% non-original. Looks like these two, they've actually used the original mica washers, which are barely big enough to cover the back of them. Oh yeah, I don't know if they are. Yeah, they just make it. Maybe they've put a wider washer, but they only just. I wouldn't be real happy with that repair. So I think it's time to get the manual and check out what's going on. I might take that fuse off the back too while I think of it. Since this thing seems to be running, it seems to be a 3 amp fuse on the back, even though it should be a 3.15, but 3 amp to 50 volt. I'm going to take my little 1 amper out. I think that was the one I put in there, wasn't it? Yeah, it's got corrosion on it. That was the one. 1 amp. Let's put a 3 amp in, should be close enough. So yeah, to get this back to more original condition, it's definitely going to have them replaced. These do look like original transistors, even though they look like someone had been soldering them. I guess some of these have actually been glued on, but it's got that good sort of clear yellow contact adhesive type stuff, so that doesn't normally cause any issues. Does that resistor look a bit cooked? It's always worth checking the resistors when the outputs have been changed, because often they will change value. These aren't necessarily fusible resistors, but they kind of act like them. That's 3.3. That one looks like it might have been cooked a little bit. 3.4, so it's good. What is this one? I can't read. 150. Is that another? So there's a couple 150s there. This channel's got some other stuff in it. What do we got? 3.2. Where's the other 3.3? That's not it. So these must be different in different channels. That's 150. 148 as it reads, so they all seem to be alright. It's on 150, even though it does look like it may have been slightly cooked, but that could just be some lacquer or something on it coming off a bit. Guess we should check these 0.33s, but they're probably not likely to be off. 0.04, 0.04. You'd hope whoever fixed it checked all this, but you don't know. It looks a bit amateur in its replacements. Personally, I normally try to keep all these things with original transistors unless you couldn't get them. Then you substitute, but I normally just like to put the originals in so everything stayed as it was meant to be, and it's, I guess, slightly more matched to the other channel, even though it probably isn't anything you'd ever hear, but still, if you're doing a repair for someone, you should try and keep everything like it was made, rather than just, you know, something you happen to have in stock that'll do the job. Tempting as it is sometimes. But I did have a fair few of these sort of transistors. I used to keep them in stock for amps, because you'd see them from time to time. A lot of them use the same bits and pieces in them. Like A1103 and yeah, the C257778, they were, I think a lot of more modern amps use those. Even going into the early surround amps and stuff, a lot of them had these sort of packaged transistors, and again, you'd often find they're the same. Those were more common for being, even though the numbers changed slightly, they were pretty much all the same thing. Oh, I already turned that on and reset it, didn't I? Guess I better check. There's nothing in these main filter caps. Still got 5 volts in that one. Nothing in that one. Is that my little resistor? Yeah. We'll just try and get rid of whatever's left in there, because I don't think that'll worry the ASR meter too much, but it may upset its readings. It's be interesting to see. Very low as you'd expect from, what were they, 47,000, 33,000, 3,300 I should say, not 1,000. And then there's another big cap, here they are. Whoops. 212, very low. 221.1, which should be fine for that. What is it? It's, a lot of these caps look a lot bigger than what they measure. It's a 220, 35, I think 470. Over there somewhere, C218 I think. Yeah, very low. A couple other big ones. Ooh. Am I just not making connection, or is that thing open circuit? Let's see, 211. I doubt it's open circuit, but you never know. Wouldn't be surprised to find something dead in one of these, given their age now, but it's also the case they tend to be fine still. What's this? C303? That's fine. What else can I connect to? Emitter. That might have something to do with our... Well, is it... Could be something to do with our iffy channel that blew a fuse or something, I guess, or blown outputs. And that leg of it looks a bit iffy in the solder, which can be a sign sometimes that it's leaked its guts out. And I could hear a little bit of a sound. Sometimes you hear a bit of, like when there's moisture there or something. And of course this is glued on, so you've got to be super careful not to break these cheapo sort of non-fiberglass boards when they did the job, but they're not as good as a good solid. Oh yeah, look at that. The leads come right out of it. Well, that was a good find. Because that is the sort of thing that may cause another premature failure of a channel or something. You definitely don't want dodgy caps. It didn't seem to affect the sound quality at all, but it may affect the operating conditions of transistors and stuff. Phew, that smells pretty gross. So what was it, a 1000 mic 35? Look at the size of that. Don't think they're anything like that size anymore. Would have been a shame to keep, nice to keep all the things original, but there's another couple. That's one. Oh, don't go to sleep on me right now. Typical of it to turn off right when you want it. C208, C220. I reckon that's them. 220, 208. Yeah, we've done that one. There's a couple of small. Must be 202. It's measuring reasonably high, but it probably should. 204. 222. Someone's actually replaced that by the look of it. That'll be 222. I guess that's like a 0.1 microfarad or something. 0.47. Yep, so they're good. There's a couple more over there. I think that's 203, and that should be another high one, 201. That's measuring 9, so that's even slightly worse. What should a 0.47 measure? Oh, that's still not bad for them. Measuring better than a 1 microfarad. We've got another 219. But I know from fixing Panasonic TVs, it's an electrode, no, that's a ceramic cap, we don't care about that. That these blue caps, especially from the 70s, do fail eventually. So it's usually best to be thorough with them and check them all. This amp probably is one you could say would be worth thinking about recapping potentially. 100 mic, they measure slightly different but not far off. Did I do that 47, 470, whatever it is down there? I think I did, but 0.08, was that little 4 point's got a negative symbol, so it must be. That's another little, where were those two? Was it these two? 0.13, 0.25, I mean it's still well below what the ESR meter has written, but the fact they measure slightly different, probably not the best sign. I guess if one's gone, it's probably worth thinking about replacing this other one. I don't think I checked these are in the phono preamp or something. Again, I don't know if someone's replaced or whether they just didn't have those in the same brand. They probably are original. 2 more 0.47s and a couple of 47s. That'll be your 0.47, that'll be your 0.47. Where were the other two? Oh, there. Oh, wait, was that the other one? 0.6. Oh, yeah, there they are. 0.6. Yeah, so they're all good. 0.83 is pretty good. So what are these doing exactly? Like one for each rail or something? I guess I should have printed out a circuit if I can find one online. Bound to be one somewhere. These are a very common amp in the day. So that's the negative, which went to the negative side. What a surprise. And the positive, it's not an output coupling cap or something, it can't be, surely. It's a diode. What do we got here? I have no idea what that's doing. That comes back to the collector of that, but that's not an output. What I say was the emitters, this is the speaker. That's for a jumper wire, probably through a fuse directly to the speaker tunnel. See, I'm not sure what that cap's filtering or coupling. In fact, one side's on ground, it's got to be a filter, I guess, isn't it? What are these resistors here? They're all reasonably high value. Well, that one isn't so much. Tiny little diode. Not sure what it did. But that, I wonder if that's another one over there for the other channel. That's a 35-1000, I think, so that's different again. Oh no, it is a 1035. 1000, there's 3 of them in the amp, not 4, interestingly. Now does this one do, it looks like it could go in a similar, couple of resistor, don't see a diode here. No, I might have to look, because if there's 2 of them doing the same function, it probably wouldn't hurt to replace the pair. Might even pay to replace all 3 of them, now that we know one's gone. It might just be that one failed and the others are fine. But admittedly, a amp like this is kind of getting towards being a candidate for a recap. I don't know if I took those orange ones, come to think of it. I don't think I did. Actually, I did do that one down there, I think, C101. Yeah, they measure about the same, 4, so they're 1 mic or something low. It's 3.3, I think that says. Yep. Oh, well, that's another issue we found. But looking at this, I don't think anything's even attached to the one cable tie. I think we can basically gut this thing and repaint it as easy as. There's a couple more screws in the back panel on the front. Well, it's the other. You have to take the power cord off. I'm telling you, the back doesn't really need a respray or anything. It's a little rusty here and there, but it's a bit rusty underneath. Maybe I'll have to try and respray that with the amp back together. So there's only 1 screw under there. And yeah, a little bit of corrosion on some of the screws, on some of the sockets. I don't know, this one's not exactly going to be a mint amplifier when it's back together. So what's this do? Swings down and comes off. There's a bit more filth showing up in there. What is this bit? Must have been jammed in with the cord there somewhere. But you couldn't really make a simpler amp to pull to bits. And interestingly, I think they've put little bits of spaghetti tubing on the screws where they go through to make them not as sharp or something. I did notice there was something weird sticking through. Here, there's another one. When you looked under the transformer, it looked rather odd. And that's it, I think. We're free. Just tip out the last bits of muck, but that can be resprayed, other than I guess the serial number, and I guess that warning label can probably go because it doesn't do much. And what have we got stuck on here? Is that original? I thought they had a little pin that pushed in. They do, they're much like the Sharp microwave used to like these style where you have a foot with a little press-in piece, little pin that. Except they have ones usually came off again. This one does not want to come apart. It's starting to go. Yeah, a little pin comes up and you carefully remove that. Yeah, that should come right out. I've never seen them with these plastic things on before that I can remember. Is it actually part of it, or has someone put that? I was hoping it was a separate bit you could get rid of, but no, it's actually part of it, I think. Yeah, well, that's a bit of a weird design. I guess I could try and just bend them all back up again like that or something, and maybe heat them and reshape them. Bit weird. If they're like that, I can probably pull them out from the bottom anyway. Looks like I can. Maybe that's the idea, to make it easier to get them off, I don't know. Normally I just have a pin that fits up inside the foot and you don't see the pin, but at least that's all you got to do to get that piece ready. To probably wire brush or sandpaper or something to get that off. Just lightly remove the rust and that can be recoated. And yes, this transformer should also be possible, except the little plastic washer's all falling to bits. So I think that might be important, that insulating washer, because otherwise you can get eddy current through these things. Basically a voltage induced in the screws and through the metalwork. That one's all going to disintegrate. So maybe I should have just left them well enough alone. I seem to remember there was a prank in one of the electronics magazines about putting a bolt through a toroidal transformer that was electrically, or maybe it was a strap to the bolt to connect both ends together, like to the chassis or something. It was a bit of an April Fool's Day joke because you'd get like amps of current induced in it or something, and it would run nice and hot, especially with a bigger transformer. So I think that's why they've insulated that, so they're not the sort of thing you should just toss away. There's the part number, I guess. Oh, we've got another piece here, I better be careful. What's that? Ooh, what is that? There's another one there. Oh, they fit in the little hole there. So they're not actually, there's no screw in those two bits. They must just be a nice little cover plate or something. Oh, it's well stuck on. But yeah, rather grotty and horrible. And there's our other little plate. That's the usual old sort of transformer. Nothing exciting to see there. Bit of varnish, bit of cardboard, bit of sticky tape maybe holding it together, and some fiberglass tape underneath that. Oh, so there's wires hanging off these terminals as well. So someone, that's the sort of thing that causes your blown outputs. All these people strip the wires too long and then they touch on the chassis or touch on each other, and they're a little rusty, but just a bit of surface rust on the top. I think they should still make a good connection. I think that the lower bits are brass anyway, the bits that are soldered to. And the RCA sockets, yeah, a little bit dirty still. They probably want a good scrub. The ground socket, again, a little bit rusty. You've got a din. Those two screws can be replaced, or you can clean them off and respray them, but I should have a couple similar ones. And looks like another serial number stamped in there maybe. It's not the same as the other one. Better see if the motor and chassis are the same, have the matching numbers. Well, it won't be much of a classic. Oh, it's got an NA something there, and it's got a SGP number there, so I don't know what that is. Right near the power cord. And it looks like there's meant to be some sort of badge there, but is it actually a sticker or what is it? Whether that was Technics or an aftermarket thing, it doesn't seem to have anything on it. Ah, that's what it is. They've covered up some sort of keyhole. Not sure what that is. It's actually a piece of black covered aluminium, stick on aluminium, much like you found on boombox front panels and stuff. So yeah, I'll have to sort out a replacement for these little plastic things, because these would have been both this washer piece and probably it looked like they had a little bit of tubing, you know, basically moulded onto them so that when the screw went in, it insulated the first part of the screw where it went through this bracket, much like a TO3P transistor insulator. Or even, you know, I don't know if I use them on these. No, these were clamped on, so, or the ones you put through the hole in a TO220 or something, it would have been that sort of style. So it'd be interesting to see if I can find something. Otherwise I probably could just use a bit of spaghetti tube or heat shrink tube and some sort of insulated washer on the top. But I'll get that sprayed up and I'll sort out some 1000 mic capacitors and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so I'm back on this Technics amp and I've given the bottom a new coat of paint. scraped off the worst of the rust. There were a couple of tiny bits left, but the worst of it's gone. There is still a bit on this back panel I'll have to patch up later. So I sprayed all that, sprayed these end bits on the transformer. I also put some paper over it and just did the actual top of the transformer just to get rid of that little patch of rust there. I had a look in the online, found a service manual for this, and the original output transistors are 2SD526 and 2SB596, so that was what these pairs of transistors were, and I don't actually have any, but I can get them for about $3 something, getting towards $4 each, plus post. So I think I'll just get 2 pairs of those and just replace these with the originals. I don't really like those old tip 32 31 type transistors. They were really used in budget stuff. They probably do work as well, but I don't really trust a lot of European semiconductors that much, and these much later ones are well out of place in this, and like I say, they're almost so wide that they're going past the edges of the insulating washers, which is not good. I did look up these capacitors, and that faulty one that I replaced did have something to do with that output channel. They've got some sort of weird arrangement. I think one of these smaller caps, 100 mic or something, is on the main rail filtering near the output transistors, but then it goes through a resistor or something into these ones. So it's a bit of an odd circuit, but they are definitely in that area. So I've got a couple more of those brand new ones, so I'll replace the other 2,000 microfarads at least. I think the rest of the caps in it are pretty good, so I don't think I'll bother doing a full recap on it. Okay, about 2 months after getting the transistors ordered, I'm finally getting back onto this thing. So it's sick of them lying around and sick of this amp lying around, so I better get into it and see if I can't sort it out. Problem is, now I know what's wrong with it. There's not much incentive to actually do the work because it's just boring now. More fun kind of finding the faults than fixing them usually. Not that it's had an awful lot wrong with it. I did look up in the manual if there's any adjustments or anything, but there isn't really. You just measure voltages between a couple of points in each channel, and if they're above a certain amount you cut a jumper wire or something, which is already cut in these, so that's a bit of a weird setup. But anyway, we'll maybe at least check that voltage. But I've got all new output transistors just so we can have the original pairs in here rather than these odds and sods that someone's put in here. Possibly these transistors will be good for something else later on. I used to have a lot of these tip 31 and 32, or whatever these particular ones are. They were commonly used in kits and power supplies, amp kits, all sorts of things. But I don't know if I've actually got any in stock anymore, but I'll probably keep those as good general purpose transistors. And this other pair, I can't remember what they are, but they might be good for replacing the same ones in some other amp or something. So we'll end up with a few spare transistors that might be good for something, depending how long the leads are. They're not too bad. Yeah, that's right, these A11, 03 and whatever it is, just someone shoved all the leads in there. And fair enough, if you don't really care too much, you just grab whatever you have on hand at the time, which is usually these newer ones. These are in all sorts of stuff that's going in the e-waste these days. C2578, and hardly any heatsink paste on them. Though to be fair, there is more on the actual things, but I can actually see the blank spot on the actual insulating washers, micro washers here, where they've just pulled the old transistor off and just stuck these on top. No new heatsink paste. I mean, that's very dodgy. Another reason I'm glad I pulled this to bits, because you do find stuff like that, just people just don't care, I guess. That's tip 42C. I think they used to use them in guitar amps or something. I was thinking it was a 3132, but it's a 4142. I remember I had something I had to replace a couple of those in, and I think it was some sort of guitar amp or something weird. Someone's actually drilled out the holes a bit bigger to get those new transistors in as well. So yeah, what a lot of messing around just to save $8 worth of transistors. I guess if you've got to pay postage, it's a bit more, and if you want to fix it on the spot in a hurry, maybe it was worth doing it that way. But those ones are on well. That maybe not quite so well. I mean, really we should probably take them all off. That one's stuck on pretty well, but it's starting to come. It's getting pretty dry. I think we'll just remove all the old paste and start again is usually the best way. If you're going to fix the thing up, might as well remove these mica washers. Doesn't hurt to check the condition when you pull them off. It often gives you an idea if they're any good or not, because sometimes they're getting a bit burnt or something. Not usually in these Japanese ones, but some of the European ones, they use those horrible blue plasticky ones and stuff like in the Philips TVs and stuff, and you do get issues if you're not careful. I can probably just clean it off with a bit of methylated spirits usually, you know, that comes off nicely. Much easier than I thought. Usually it's all baked on and horrible, but that comes off absolutely no problem at all. And try not to drop all the bits back in there, I guess. But it doesn't have to redo it all. Make sure there's no air gaps or anything, because that's what gives you hot spots on your transistors. And just the fact someone's peeled these off before could put air gaps. If this is dried out paste, you tend to get a little bit of breaking off because it's dried out, and that'll cause air gaps. Pieces might have even fallen out or something, and that's where you risk. I mean, it's probably not such a big problem with such a low powered amp, but I'd prefer not to risk it. If you're gonna fix it, you might as well fix it properly, and then it'll go for another 30 years or something without a problem, hopefully, if no one abuses it. If it's just run the way it should be, it'll be absolutely fine. No cranking it up too loud and into clipping and distortion. No shorting the speakers out or anything like people tend to do when they're messing around, or putting two sets of speakers in parallel and halving the impedance or something. There's a million different ways people could blow up an amplifier when they abuse them, but otherwise these things would generally go forever if they had like the good quality Japanese parts. The European parts not always, and some of the poor construction techniques I've seen in some European amps, where there's weird dry joints in the wiring harness or something odd like that, causing intermittence and stuff. They were a lot more problematic usually, but this sort of era Japanese stuff was bulletproof normally. I can't think of a bad model, which is why they do have a good reputation, these 70s amps, even though they are very much gutless old amps really. But if you're don't listen too loud and don't really want to crank up the bass and stuff, depending on what style of music you listen to, these sound alright. So that's got pretty much all the old stuff off. There's a little bit on the circuit board area, and that's just a bit of printing. Oh, so then we've got to clean the actual, that's the fun bit. I might use a bit of paper towel or something to clean off the washers. Probably would have been easier to buy some new ones if I had thought about it. I say probably not that critical in this situation. I guess the other option would be, that's not really correct for this era, would be get some of those rubber or silicone washers and just stick them on. You don't need to put any heatsink paste with them. They were a great invention, those things, because it saves a lot of labour and messing around. And I don't think you can actually buy these flat ones anyway. I'm not sure if you can. Usually the TO220 ones you get have a screw hole in them. The sort of ones somewhere like Jayco or someone would sell, or Dick Smith back in the day or whatever, they usually had a hole in them and a little washer thing that came with them for the screw little insulator. It's got a little bit of a mark on it, but I think that's alright. So yeah, these were not a standard off the shelf, these sort of Japanese ones where they actually just use a clamp hold the transistor to the heatsink. Usually you had to fiddle around. So great design work by the Japanese to save work and get the same result rather than fiddling around with stupid screws and micro washers with holes and little insulating bits. They just put a bracket on and clamp them to the mica, just a flat piece of mica. No, well, there's screws but not nuts and bolts and all that sort of rubbish like they used to do. Now I've got to find my heatsink paste. There it is. It's actually in sight. Now what we really want to do is, I guess, I should have made it more of a note when they sat, I guess, but we'll put a bit on the back. And then we'll just do the transistor itself, I think, even though these were sort of done all over each side, I think. But just make it, you don't want it too thick, just thick enough to coat it. And when you press it on, a good thing about them being clear is you can see if you've squeezed all the air gaps out of it, like about so. I'll see if it stops sliding everywhere. But you really don't need to overdo it, just a thin coat. Because it spreads pretty well. Where's the pins? I'm just going right above where the pins for the transistor go on the board. Can tweak it later if I need to get it right, but if you really peel them off, it's probably best to recoat them again, just to make sure, again, no air, no hot spots, because there's an air gap in there, because you'll get a hot spot on your collector of your transistor, and it may not matter, but there is a risk it will matter. So this is a bit of a messy job. Never seem to stay clean doing electronics like you'd hope you would. You'd think it'd be a nice clean job, but there's always heatsink paste and stuff. You used to get through plenty of this stuff. Plenty of switch mode transistors and ICs and stuff blowing up in TVs and VCRs and whatever. Mainly TVs and horizontal output transistors and vertical output transistors. So it's pretty much a daily usage. Just get my hands clean. Treat this stuff as toxic is the best way. I think most of it's fairly harmless, but some of it's full of silicon, which isn't very good for you. And definitely something you wash off your hands before you eat or anything. Or put your hands anywhere near your mouth. So I usually just treat everything as highly toxic. That way you behave yourself around it and you should be fine. Supposedly some of it even had beryllium oxide in it, I think, some of the old transistors and some of the paste, but whether that's true or not. These almost look like, well, one of them looks like a Samsung. I don't know if that's a Samsung symbol or not, so not the high quality Japanese parts I was hoping. F almost looks like Fairchild, so was that Samsung had the little diamond things or little, dunno, could be wrong, but maybe these aren't nice Japanese ones like you used to get, NEC or something, Hitachi. Nothing's quite the way it used to be, but still I'm sure they'll do the job. Now, I did write down which transistors which, because I didn't take any notice when I pulled them out. We have 211 and 213 are the Ds. Now, I guess we'll have to bend these a bit. So the Ds, 211 and 13, that's 13. 211, they're on the same channel though. Hang on, what? No, that's, I've written it wrong. 211 and 212, I was going to say it should be one for each channel. And they come out at the front roughly like those BD41s or whatever they were. Usually all about the same. So 211 and 213. So that's 211 here. Just make sure they fit first and they're in the right spot. Yep. Then we'll put some paste on it. But yeah, you never lose the knack of bending these transistors right, because normally they're all spaced out exactly the same. And especially the Japanese stuff. 212 would be, I guess, this one. No, it's the opposite side, so they're like a mirror image. Interesting. That's a little bit too far out. Yeah. So now we can paste it up. And base the same process, but I just put it on the back of the transistor. There's no point covering everything in the stuff. It can't conduct heat whether a transistor isn't sitting, so waste of time putting any more on. And again, just a thin layer is enough to squeeze out and fill in all the holes. Just make sure the transistor, the way you've done the leads, it does press against the heatsink nice and flat, because if you have the bottom leads bent one way or the other, it may sit on an angle. You want that just to sit flat without any resistance or anything. You don't have to bend it in place, kind of thing. Again, to keep the metal nicely, naturally against the heatsink paste and the insulator, because if you have a bend in it, it may again get an air gap or something. Even if you fill that with paste, it's probably not ideal. Try and get those heatsinks straight, make them look nice. So it's TR211, TR212. I better just check the height that these things sit, because they've kind of got a metal. Oh, this actually goes into the board or something. Oh, it does too. Well, that doesn't look. Oh, it presses against the middle of it. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I see. So they made it sprung, so the middle little flap thing here, I was expecting that to go around the edge of the transistor, but it sits right in the middle of it. So again, before you solder anything, make sure the transistor is exactly the right height, which that's perfect. And I assume that one will be the same. Yeah. It's just a matter of making everything mechanically how it should be. And again, we can bend the next pair of transistors, which I'll double check anyway, and that should just be the other ones. They're both 2SB596s, 212 and 214. I think I'm safe to just paste that up without checking it, now that I know that my memory of how to bend these things is correct, because I would have done it enough times to remember. And even building kits and stuff, you often had to do basically the same thing. But yeah, these were also used in televisions and other things as vertical output transistors in the old ones and stuff, so you'd replace a few of them over the years, not just in amps. Pretty common package, the old TO220. And yeah, voltage regulators and stuff as well, so it's used in all sorts of things. And just make sure TR213, yeah, is our other B596. Yeah, I could have drawn a better diagram really. I should have just printed the circuit out, I guess. But it doesn't actually show all the transistors are listed off to the side of the circuit anyway, so you kind of got to cross-reference. But the way I did it on my bit of paper wasn't the best. Oh, we'll soon find out if I stuff it up. And the diagram on the board doesn't help much because they just say ECB, but of course these are all the same pinout. So there's nothing to indicate PNP, NPN, etc. Why is that one dropped off? It's just peeling off a bit. So maybe that one's a little bit twisted, but I think it'll be alright. Where's the other screws? I think it was the long screws, was it? Yeah, I think that was definitely a good idea to replace all that, just for that heatsink paste alone. Especially the fact someone hadn't even rejigged them properly. Maybe one channel had been, but the other one definitely just left the hole there from the old transistor where it peeled off, which is ridiculous. Like, if you want these things to last, you do not want gaps and stuff. All looks good. I probably could have put a little bit more on, so I've got a bit more of a squeeze out on the sides. But there's enough. There's a slight bead around most of that transistor, not so much at the top. There's a good bead on it around the mica washers. Always nice to have a little bit squirting out, just to prove 100% you put plenty in there. So now I was going to change, I think, these other two big caps. Got that one, that was the dud one. I think these are the 1000 mic or something. Was it 1000? Yeah, 1000 and 1000. One's gone as a potential for those ones to be duds or on their way. So I think they're worth refreshing when you find one of one sort gone. Quite a bit of flux and muck on here. It really could do with, I might just scrape it up a bit with a soldering iron. I don't even have any flux remover anymore. Doesn't it have it sometimes, because normally stuff's not like this. This is just many years of, I mean, it might have had a bit in the factory from the beginning, but mostly just people messing around and making a mess. Doesn't really worry anything much, it just looks messy. I should really be using the big solder anyway, I think. Where did I put it? And that pin is slightly, I think some of the trackers actually come off from all the work it's had. Yeah, that's, I don't know if I can get that off with a bit of, sometimes a bit of methylated spirits will do it. Yeah, sometimes that'll clean some of the flux off. Yeah, so getting rid of some of it. Yeah, it's coming. What a mess. Ah, that's getting it. Just cruddy workmanship. And like I said, I don't think it affects anything whatsoever, it just looks messy. Sometimes you just got to stop and undo some of the mess of the last 30 years or 40 years or 50 years, whatever old. This is probably going on 50 years, I guess, now, isn't it? Who knows, it may have been someone rough who's blown it up a few times and they've been replaced multiple times. That's better, so much nicer, not seeing all that crud on there. Is that a bit of wire stuck to that? Something. I think it's just the coppers coming through. But yeah, someone's heated this enough that it's started coming off. You could just solder a blob to it, it would still attach it right, I think, but I'll bend it over, I think, and well, that one was bent over. That was one I had to bend over to get off, I remember now. So someone's been a bit vigorous with it, probably. Oh, that just makes it look like new again. So I'll just bend that lead right over. There's plenty of distance, so you don't want to bend them too close to the transistor case, but we're plenty distance away here. And I just bridged it. Nice, I shouldn't have took all that flux off, it might have helped stop that. Flux does help things bridge. So we've got that one hooked up. These all look to be alright, I think. Is that one a little bit, that may be missing a little bit of salt, a bit of copper track. Still plenty of solder on there, put nice big blobs on there. Oh, I guess maybe there's a bit of meth on there, making a bit of a hissing noise, but yeah, that looks so much tidier. And the capacitors, that was the other thing, wasn't it? There's two big ones. Where's the other one? That C212 is probably it. About the right spot and about the right size. And the other one, it's not 217. Honestly can't remember where it was. There it is, C203 I'm guessing. And it's glued on, so you've got to be very careful you don't crack the board or anything. Looks okay, of course, as they often do, but these Matsushita caps are sort of getting old. Is that a little bit of muck around that lead, or is it just flux? Yeah, that could be a little bit of corrosion starting to leak down that lead. Yeah, I think it is. So that is definitely, unless it's the glue under it, which I doubt. Yeah, something looks a bit like something on the board there. Hard to know for sure, but may even need to scrape a bit of that off. Again, being careful not to crack the board, but they do make the cap sit a bit high if you're not careful. Probably need something a bit sharper, but if you can, it is stretchy sort of glue, so you can usually kind of, if you can get a hold of it, yeah, you can just pull it upwards and it tends to come off in larger pieces. There goes the cotton buds. Doesn't really matter, but I like to get rid of it so they sit nicely on the board, especially since the newer caps are usually a bit smaller. You don't want them kind of sitting up high, even though it doesn't matter, but kind of looks crappy if they're sitting on an angle or a bit loose. But there's no real reason you have to do it. Glue be gone. Okay. Looks like the negative pin on that side. I should have checked it. I've got to get back in the habit of double checking everything. Nothing like checking what the old one, how the old one was orientated and stuff, just to make sure. I think there was supposedly one product out there with some of the markings around backwards in it. I've never come across it myself, I don't think, where I've pulled a capacitor out and it's been marked on the board the opposite of what the actual physical one on the board was. Because you know, if it's been in there for years and hasn't exploded, then if that one's got two clean leads. So I reckon that one there with that brownish lead was on its way. I mean, I guess it's almost tempted to replace these others, but I'll give this thing a good test run anyway. If there are any dodgy caps, often they show up not long after you reapply voltage to them. But it's kind of a shame to get rid of all the original bluish caps out of these, because that's how they always look, these units. And I guess if you're not a technician, you probably don't know what they're meant to look like, but I remember them going right back to my dad's old radio that he had, and we had a television which was also a national, and that had them in it, and it's just part of the look of these things really, that light blue colour. I guess someone should make a replacement cap in the correct heat shrink so that people can recap their stuff with the original looking units. I mean, if you could get nice ones like this, even with a fake Matsushita on them or something, have to be better than these random modern ones. Okay, put that earth back on, and we'll might as well put the heatsink screws back in. Let's be hopeful here that it's going to work. And I was going to throw them in the rubbish, but I might keep them, wipe all the heatsink paste off these things, and they can go back in the transistor drawer, even though the leads are a bit short on these ones. They're always good for test purposes. If you think something might blow something up again or whatever, you just put a second hand part in and double check that it doesn't blow up, because you've missed some other fault, and if it does blow up, it's no big loss. Before you go buying new stuff and charging the customer for it, you might as well blow up some old second hand parts out of some bit of junk. No smoke so far. Hopefully all the caps are in the right way and nothing starts venting smoke and bulging its top out on us. Come on, multimeter. Nothing. Nothing. I normally check all four because I don't know what I'm switched to. I should have always checked the speaker selector first, but I never do. Where is it? Ah, speakers. Oh, of course they're switched to off. Okay, main and remote. So now he's testing it with the speakers turned off. Yeah, all good. All good. And I think they said to check between, was it test point 1 and test point 2 and the junction of two resistors, which I assume is those big ones. 239, 241, that's them. I think you're looking for 75 millivolts or something. Where is the, oh, there's one of the test points. I think they said positive to the test point. Try not to short it onto the heatsink. There's 0 there, although they said to let it warm up for 5 minutes, I believe. And just be careful of mains voltages of while you're doing this. With the power on and nothing. I think that's all they said to test, and if it was greater than 0.75 volt or something, or 75 millivolts or something, to cut these links that someone's already cut. There's no bias pots or anything like that, it's all sort of self-sorting. Okay, let's turn it off and let's hook it to the speakers and see what happens. Now we've got 2 channels. Don't think I got round to cleaning the pots in this because they're a bit scratchy. Let's just turn the power off for safety's sake. I can't remember if I did get round to it or not. But let's do it again anyway. Where's that balance? Got 2 separate halves of the pots to do. Only problem is the volume. Oh, I can get in through there maybe. Yeah, that's got into it. It's a nice clicky volume control. Tone seemed alright, but I'll give them a clean anyway. I'll check the other function switches and stuff. Probably won't hurt to do the main function switch there. The speaker switches don't normally really cause any problems because they're not on the low signal stuff. Turn the volume down, always turn the volume down. Yeah. Why have we got no sound? Should have something. No, just a stupid CD player. That has ridiculous amounts of bass and treble boost. You can't complain about the range on it, but it does sound pretty good. Yeah, it's actually a very good sounding amp. I'm impressed for such an old one to sound that good. I mean, it does really crank the tone up excessively. I don't think I've ever heard an amp put out so much treble. So probably great for using with cassette players or something. Although you'd probably crank the hiss up too high, but it will certainly had some top end of the things. Yeah, give this thing a bit of a clean up for the next stage. Slowly clean it up while I'm listening to it. But I'm definitely going to give this one a test on my big speakers. This one I think will actually be a pretty decent amp to really crank up. It's not even showing any signs of getting the slightest bit warm yet. Unlike your modern amps with all your ICs and stuff in particular, but most of them seem to run fairly warm, even just idling. This thing hasn't done a damn thing. That's not even the slightest bit warmed up. Ooh, Got some horrible, looks like a bird, it's a bird feather. What the hell? It is. A black bird feather wrapped around the damn bass control. I've heard of feathering the controls, but maybe it was a pilot or something. But it's not in too bad condition, a few nicks and bits and pieces on it, but I think this should clean up half decent. Not my favourite style of amp, but there's uglier ones than this one out there. I don't think it's as nice as that Hitachi one that the finish that had on the front, but I think this is probably a better sounding amp. Oh, we've got a bit of a ding on the knob. Shame, they always seem to have had a bit of a rough life. But we'll leave that running quietly in the background. And I guess it's time for the old toothbrush treatment of the knobs. Probably should do it away from the amp because I'll probably splatter some on that if I'm not careful, but get these little fluted bits cleaned up, it should look a ton better. But there's certainly something about these old knobs that you don't get with the modern black smooth ones, as sleek as they kind of looked at first. I don't think they in some ways haven't aged as well as these old things, even though these are a bit over the top in a way. Can't beat a nice bit of brushed aluminium. Now that's something I can carefully scrape that. Sometimes you do have to resort to scraping some of this greasy stuff off. Yeah, this is not clean. I think this is probably needs a soak in something. It's like it's got some greasy coating on there or something. Maybe I need a harsher cleaner than Metho, but sometimes you got to do every single little fluted part one at a time, the hard way. That's probably only 50 odd money or something. Let's see if that dries off a bit cleaner. Oh yeah, for sure. This has got some real grot attached to it. The lengths you have to go to clean these damn things. Always the worst part of the job. But it does make them come up a lot nicer. Just a shame you're the first person in 30 years to do it, and you've got to make up for every other lazy bugger who couldn't be bothered doing it. But admittedly, like I say, most of these things end up in someone's shed or something where no one cares, and you're not going to clean your shed radio. Nothing in the shed gets cleaned. But anyway, we'll get in and give everything a clean, and I'm definitely going to give this one a good test run, because this should be a pretty nice sounding amp. Yeah, well, those two knobs are already looking substantially better than they did. Got the old fade out. They didn't disconnect them with that. That was the other reason they put a speaker protector on them, I think, so the relay would drop out rather than hearing the amp run until the capacitors ran out of juice. And I do have a little bit of rust here, needs fixing on these feet. Had this horrible stuff on them, so I don't know if I should put new feet on there. Was it a pin in there? I can't remember now what I found. Something I was going to look at. It looks like something shoved between the... I think they were part of the pin rather than shoved in between it. I can't remember if I assume I took them off and had a look. Oh, there's the foot off. Does this bit come out? It looks like it is wrapped around it, but certainly one of the weirder things I've seen. No, it's part of it, I think. It's a really strange design, that. Yeah, nothing you can do to fix it, I don't think. It's just peeled up and died. Shame they don't just come off. I guess you can just fold it all back. Maybe that's just the key, to bend it all back and then push the thing back in. Where's those pliers? Fold it back the other way and just push it back until it sort of pushes back to, pushes itself back out a bit. And such a weird design. The other thing here would be just to if you get that pinned, normally the pin goes up inside the foot. Oh, that doesn't look too bad, that one, where I've bent it all back. Maybe I'll just bend them all back if I can. Let's come out. That's all I can really do, is try and fold them right back over the other way. It does seem to get them under control again. It looks a lot better than it was. I prefer not to. Such a weird design. Prefer not to damage them if possible. Oh well, that should get it going. I'll clean the rest of the knobs up and give it a good test run, and yes, decide what to do with it. If it sounds good enough, I might keep it in the end, but I was hoping to sell this one and get rid of it, so I have one less piece of junk lying around. But I'll see how I go. Thanks for watching.